Good?
Yep.
All right. So first of all, just want to talk about the complaints. There's been several. I believe there was, after you take away some of the complaints that weren't directly related to billing issues, there were about 135, I want to say. Have you read through those complaints?
Every one of them. And the interesting part about that is a lot of the complaints didn't have actual issues that we could take care of, meaning people called in to the commission saying that they had heard bills were a lot higher, or they had heard that their neighbor was having a problem, but they didn't have a specific thing that they wanted us to take care of. And so those were logged, but there's not much, that we could do. We asked them how they would like us to facilitate what they needed. But what we found were that a lot of them did not actually have a closure type situation.
Okay. And so with that being said, I mean, we've gotten a lot of copies of power bills. I don't know if the PSC has received those same bills. Some of these that we've seen, some are $1,000, some are hundreds of dollars that people were experiencing that they say they've never experienced something like this before.
Well, it's a little bit like when you, Valerie, if you were to go, or your viewers were to go to the gasoline pump and for their car, drive up to the gas station and start pumping gas. If you have a small vehicle and you might need 3 to 5 gallons, it's going to be a whole lot less than if you go in and have a big SUV and want 25 gallons or 28 gallons. It's going to be a lot more expensive. The price has not really gone up. The reality is that fuel has taken a major toll on the price that is paid for utilities. It's not just here in Alabama. The average power price in the country has risen 26% under the Biden administration. And the reason why you see that is because the price of fuels have gone up exponentially. I tell folks when you look at it, if you went to that same gas station with your vehicle and instead of $1.69, it went up to $9.98, you would just you'd be shocked. You'd be sticker shocked. And the reality is that's what's happened with the natural gas. And natural gas is how we utilize, here in Alabama, a lot of our electricity production is the fuel is natural gas. Under the Obama administration, they wanted to get rid of coal. So a lot of our coal-fired plants were turned to natural gas. And recently, President Biden, actually right after he met with the Prime Minister of Japan, he said this is going to be a very difficult transition off of fossil fuels for our country, but when it's over with, we'll be off fossil fuels. Well, that's a ridiculous statement. We can't run the economy that we have here in Alabama or anywhere across the United States without fossil fuels. They are our baseload fuel for electricity production. They're what makes sure that you can turn on your heat in the winter, or if you have a heat pump, or make sure you can have hot water or air in the summer, or just turn your lights on, use your cell phone, whatever it might be. But the price of fuels have gone through the roof, and that's a major problem.
And you said they went up by 26%?
Power bills across the United States. If you look at a chart, and this, you can Google that right now, food is up 22% across the United States. Power bills are up 26%. It's not because these companies are making more. In fact, I'd like to go ahead and talk about something because your station keeps getting it wrong. You keep talking about 3 rate increases last year. There were no rate increases. There has not been a rate increase at all since 2021. And so what happens is what you see are fuel adjustments. There are adjustments to different things. But it is not about profit, and it is absolutely, it's not a rate increase as far as the company making more money. And, the one thing I think, and I'd like to share this with you, that we were talking about, if you go to the gas station and it's how much you pump, and what you will see here is a lot of people call us and they want to compare their January 2023 bill with January of 2024, or their December of 2023 bill, which was just this past December, with the January of 2024 bill. And as you can see, the average usage in January of 2023 for a residential customer was 1,106, and if you look at December, it was 1,190. It was higher. But if you look at January, it's 1,479, and that is for your average residential customer. That is not necessarily someone who lives in a house that uses a heat pump to heat their home, and in these cold degree days, it takes a lot out of a heat pump. Heat pumps were really designed for weather that, maybe you have a 55-degree day in the winter, then it can pull your home up to, 68, 70 degrees to a comfortable temperature without using much power. But when you have so many degree days that are right now in the month of January, Alabama was 58%, had a 58% higher number of degree days. Now, what does that mean? It is a national figure. Let me share this poster with you. I thought this would be easier for your viewers when let's see if I can. All right, here we go. Heating degree days. And this is a national chart. These numbers are put together nationally. This is not done at the Public Service Commission. But we actually look and monitor this all the time. And as you can see, the most egregious changes to degree days came when you look at the Southeast. But even when you look at all the rest of the Southeast, you don't see such high percentage changes as you do in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Right through here, usually a heat pump does the job because we don't have that many low degree days. We were 58% lower degree days than on a normal day last year. So if you're comparing last year to this year, you've got 58% colder weather. And those degree days start out at 65 degrees. And every degree below 65 is a point. And that just shows you how much colder it was during the month of January. And a really cold day uses a lot more power if you're using a heat pump. And one of the things that I share with audiences when I speak, Alabama has more heat pumps than any other state in the nation. And so, when you have really cold days, your heat pump is going to go into the heat strip mode, and it's going to use a lot more power. So that's one of the things. And then here's another example. In January of 2023, the average temperature was 50.9. In January of 24, the average temperature was 42.9. Now, you got to know that if 42, that's not every day, it's going to be, a lot colder at some points. And when it's a lot colder, those heat strips kick in and use a lot more power. And once again, I'll tell you, as I say, it is definitely the amount that you use. And you've seen here, the amount is just so much higher. And the next thing is, we were talking about fuels. And let me find that chart for you. I think it's right here. When you talk about fuels, fuel to produce power is a pass-through cost. In other words, the company does not make any money on fuel. We do our best at the beginning of each year to set the fuel price so that customers pay exactly what the fuel will cost. But Alabama Power Company's fuel for the year cost anywhere from $1 billion to $1.5 billion. So you can imagine setting the exact amount. You basically would have to read the weather and know exactly what the weather is going to be. You're going to have to know exactly what the mix of fuel is going to need to be. And you're going to have a real crystal ball to know exactly what's happening in the fuel market. So there's no way we can ever, even though we try every year to set it so that it lands on zero, there's really no way. And so someone likened it to landing a jet plane on a postage stamp. Can't happen. But we do our best to get as close as possible. And as you can see, though, in 2022, we missed the mark big time. And it was because, like I mentioned, natural gas went from under $2 under Donald Trump. Under President Biden, when he was so anti-fossil fuels, it went up to just right under $10. And so what you have, you look over here, and this is, starting right here is where we are. And 0 would be meaning we landed on the postage stamp, meaning the consumer and the company got it right, and that would be 0. Right here. Okay, so if you go across here, right here in 2021, we were basically at 0, right here. But as you can see, it got over 650 under collected in 1 year. You can see this is from March of 2022, and look at these numbers during all of 2022. Stops right here. I mean, that's how much under recovered. $650 million in fuel costs that were under recovered. And so what happens is the next year, usually you go in and you say, okay, the fuel is this much under recovered. We've got to, come up with a plan to collect that. And we had never seen anything like that at the commission. There had never been a year where fuel had been that volatile. But once again, policies are set in Washington. And whatever those policies are in Washington, then you have to figure out a way to deal with it. And it's affecting everybody's pocketbook. It doesn't matter if it's food or your power bill or the gasoline you put in your car. I mean, whatever it is, it's gone up. And so in looking at that, we had to figure out how do we recover as consumers, how do we best do it without inflicting too much pain? And so we went ahead and changed the factor mid-year in June, and then we didn't correct enough because it kept going up. So we self-corrected again and tried to change that factor in November. And once again, in looking at that, it's going to take us probably until June of this year to make up just the volatility in the fuel market. And that has just been detrimental to people. If you look at that, though, I mean, when people say their bill went from, 200 to 800, that's something with their system. That's how much they're using, because that did not happen in pricing. When you look at the fuel cost, it's somewhere in the ballpark, and that will change because, obviously we don't know exactly the fuel mix and all, but the fuel price changed somewhere in the ballpark of $15 on the average utility bill. And so it could be $10, it could be $15, but that is completely a pass-through cost. And once again, I'll reiterate, there have been no rate increases for Alabama Power Company at all. So that was not it. I mean, Now, I'll tell you the other thing. 1 is weather, 2 is fuel. Weather, you're just using so much more fuel. Number 2 is the fuel cost to produce the electricity. But number 3, and this is something that doesn't get a lot of press, but the Trump tax cuts were just a big deal for consumers of Alabama Power Company and probably any other corporation if they're made to give it back to the consumer. And that's the good thing about being regulated. We did not let the company keep that tax cut. And in fact, in 2023, let me make sure I'm telling you right, well, it would have been in December of 2022, for the year 2023, it was approximately $380 million that went back to the ratepayer. And so when you look at that, that was approximately $9 a month that the consumer had a credit. And I call it the Trump tax credit that was on their bill. Now that's now gone away. So, sometimes you'll see a difference in bills, but that tax credit's gone now because that was over-collected tax monies that once that tax cut went into place, those over-collected monies went back to the consumer.
Okay, so just to clarify something personally, I did not report that there were 3 rate increases last year.
Okay, somebody at your station did.
I just wanted to clarify
okay.
that
Somebody at your
our
station
report
did,
for
and I
that had
just
been
wanted, make
accurate
sure.
and necessary corrections had been made, but personally,
Okay, good.
just wanted to let you know that.
I mean, I think that, look, I'm so honored to get to serve the people of this state. And I think Tuesday night, it was just very comforting to see my numbers and for people to have said, yes, keep doing what you're doing, keep fighting Washington, keep fighting the Biden administration, and make sure we can use the cheapest fuel available to make the electricity in Alabama. And I think that was a resounding yes, keep doing it. And keep fighting the environmentalists that want to raise the price that we pay for electricity in Alabama. They don't want things cheaper. It's just like electric cars. If you want an electric car, that's great. You should have the freedom to go buy any car you want. But you shouldn't be mandated to go get that electric vehicle because that's going to cost you at least $5,000 more. And so that's the same with electricity. I just want electricity or energy freedom for all Alabamians. If they want to keep their thermostat in the winter on 74 and be nice and cozy and warm, then I want them to have the option. If they want to, like me, save money, I keep mine on 65, but I don't want to tell somebody else what to do. We all have different things that make us comfortable. Now in the summer, I like it a lot cooler, and I probably spend more of my power bill in the summer, but that's what energy freedom is, and that's what I believe we need in Alabama.
So just moving forward in your role, what can be done? Because these high bills that people are getting, they're not going away. And there's a lot of people out there that, call them your average, working class family that doesn't necessarily apply for government assistance and can't get any of the utility assistance that's available because their income doesn't meet those standards.
Right.
So just moving forward, what can be done, at least in your role, to prevent something like this from happening again so that people can have that energy freedom that you talked about?
Valerie, I will tell you, I am comfortable now and I can pay my bills, but it wasn't always that way. And so my heart hurts for people that are struggling. And I say that. When I was much younger, I used to call it my Campbell Soup Week, when I could either afford a meal or I had to eat a can of Campbell soup to be able to pay all my bills. And so I can definitely relate to that. And so every time I make a decision here, that's what I'm thinking about. And you can ask all of the staff here, they hear that constantly. And when I hear companies coming in, whether it's the gas company or the power company, they have to hear it from me. When I say, how do you think the guy or the lady or the mama or whatever, how are they going to relate to this? And they have to hear all these stories. I don't take any decision I make lightly. Alabamians, we're a family. And I feel like it's a blessing that I get to protect my Alabama family every day. And that is my goal. But obviously, when you use something, you have to pay for it. And that is something you have to weigh at all times.
So I guess I have a question about the rebates that people get back that they saw recently, on their power bill for what's over collected.
Right.
Does Alabama Power collect interest on that, and is the interest part of what gets returned to the customers?
Yes and yes. Obviously, you don't have money sitting. It would be very irresponsible to have money sitting in the bank and not have some kind of money gained on that. So yes, and but usually it's given back in a fairly quick manner. So it would be short term, and in fact, we call those adjustments, I just counted just to kind of give you an indication. Over the last 3.5 years, we have had 14 adjustments that are in the favor of the customer, and we've had 9 that would, I guess, be called in the favor of the company. But the reality is it's a checks and balances. And when I say that, 2 of those would be fairly major. They would be the fuel changes. the company does not make any profit on the fuel, as I mentioned earlier. But as the fuel prices change, or we need to change that, then that's an increase or a decrease for the consumer. But of the 14 that the consumer has gotten back, we do not let Alabama Power keep any money that is not allowable under their return. They're allowed to make between 575 and 615. That number has gone down twice while I've been at the commission. In the beginning, when I got here, the first year as president, I was elected in November of 2012, and in 2013 we held hearings, and during those hearings we brought it down to 575 to I think 621, and I'm going to make sure that's right. And so that went into effect in 2014. Then again in 2018 we brought it down the top of the range to 615. And so anytime they miss the ballpark on that range, then they have to give it back to the consumer. They also have to give things back, like for instance the Trump tax cut. They weren't allowed to keep that. So even though people said, oh, it's for corporations, we'll never see it, actually every Alabama Power customer benefited in a pretty major way from those Trump tax cuts that now have expired. We don't have any more now to put back into the consumer's pocket. But all of those adjustments are moving pieces so that we stay, as a commission, we are looking at it from a range. And we allow them that range, and anytime they get above it, they have to give back. Now, they don't get to, if they get below it, they don't instantly get the extra money. They have to wait until the following year and prove that they need it in their budgeting. But they have only gotten increases 3 times since I've been at the commission. And the last one, like I said, was in January of 22. So that's the last one they received.
Okay, and so just to be clear, they don't get to pocket that interest. That goes back with the rebate to
Everything
the customer.
goes back. If it's a customer's money, it goes back to the customer.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Just wanted to make sure the interest was included in that. And then, you know, Southern Company, it's one of the largest utilities in the U.S. So
let me just tell you, we don't regulate Southern Company, and we don't look at Southern Company's books. We don't have anything. They are a parent company, but we only have jurisdiction to regulate Alabama Power Company.
So with regulating Alabama Power Company, is there any long-term plans for you to lower their profit margin or redo the formula to help customers be able to afford their bills?
Well, I think the formula works really well. Like I said, consumers have gotten 14 returns to them when there was extra money, and you only look at 9 that were in the favor of the company, but actually they didn't really help the company because they were things like you know, storms, or there would be a situation where the gas prices went up. I mean, there are a lot of things like that that can change and have an adjustment. But the reality is, right now, if you look over the last 4 years, the consumers are in a much better place because of the formula system. Where you have rate cases and a company comes back in and asks for a certain rate, well, if they earn a lot more than that rate, there's nothing that brings them back in. They have to come back in. Whereas under the formula system, it is a checks and balances every day, and often a portion of anything that's an overage, all of it goes back to the consumer. So the formula system really works well. Like I said, I just mentioned earlier, when I got here, they were allowed to earn between 13 and 14 and a half. And my first year on the bench, we moved that down, and it now is even lower than that. We lowered it from 575 to 621, and then maybe 5 years ago, we actually lowered the highest return to 615. So, you know, they have really been lowered a good bit since I've been here, and that's their allowed profit. The Alabama Supreme Court allows them to do 2 things that a lot of times people aren't happy with, but it allows them to make a profit. The law says they have to be allowed to make a profit. But we have to keep that profit in check. And the second thing is they have to be allowed to advertise. And the Supreme Court ruled that many years ago. And so they are allowed to use some of their money to advertise. However, they made the decision that half of their advertising would be with their profits and half would be the consumer paying. So, but they are allowed, and that's allowed by law.
Okay. And then if Alabama Power says, this is what we're seeing for the cost of, what it takes for us to generate this power, and this is how much customers are using, what checks and balances are in place to make sure that what they're providing and the data that they're providing is accurate, and how often is that looked at?
Well, that is the beauty of the formula system. If they want their return, they have to provide us, really open up the books and records of the company every day. And if we request some extra information, they have to do it. We also have outside auditors that come in and audit. They also have to have outside people doing their depreciation studies. There are just all sorts of checks and balances, but we see their books on a daily basis. We have a full staff here that's auditing the books and records of the company. And so when they come to us and say they need something in their budget, and that's how they get an increase in a rate, is if they come to us and they show us an actual need. But there's a big difference between a want and a need. And I think the company has been very understanding when I tell them over the last 3 years, this is not a time for increases. When fuel prices have gone up as high as they are, you all have to really tighten your belt. It's not a time to do things that are all really good to do, but it's not a time for that right now. And they've tightened their belt a lot over the last 3 years so that there haven't been any rate increases. And I think that's the beauty of the formula system, is that we see everything they do. There's not a question if they're telling us the truth on the money that they need, because we actually see the books and records.
Okay, so I just want to clarify with the complaints, and I know you said a lot of them stated something about like their neighbor said, but I read through them all too, and there were still a number of people that said, my bill is 3 times what I've been seeing before.
Absolutely, and we take every one of them very seriously. But a lot of times the person needs to have the power company come out and check their meter, or the power company needs to come out and do an audit of their home, which is free. And I encourage all your viewers to request an audit if they question anything, because there are a lot of times, like your front door doesn't have enough stripping, that the hot air is going outside to warm everything up outside, and that's wasting a lot of money. There are things they can come in and audit, do an energy audit of your home, and that makes a very big difference. So there are a lot of things, though, that we have to send it to the company and ask them to provide a copy of the person's bills. We don't get anybody's bills unless they give us permission, and we go to the company and ask for it. We don't just do that. So we go to the company, we get it, and then they might send someone out to check on it. Well, all of this takes quite a while, and it could be, many times 4 to 6 weeks before we can actually get to the consumer, the customer, and say, this is what we have found. Very rarely have we found there to be a problem with a meter. It doesn't happen anymore with all the technology. But if it's 1 in a million, we want to make sure we know about it and fix it. But just this last month, we had 130 complaints. But you've got to realize there's 1.4 million customers. So that's still a fairly small number. It's much larger than we usually get, but we had one of the coldest winters that we've had, and the price of fuel has gone, exponentially up, which obviously, and paying off what happened during the 2022-2023 year has been difficult on people. And so there's a lot that goes into power production and the cost of power production and all. And so we just want to be on top of it and monitor it. But I can assure you, I speak all the time. I give my cell phone to everybody. And I try to take a proactive role in our consumer services division so that I know what's happening. Because nothing breaks my heart more than a mom who has a child and is struggling to pay her bills. That is just painful to me. And so that's what I think about every time I do anything here at the commission. And you know, I don't think any of your viewers or anybody around our state would question whether or not I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative through and through, and I try to take that conservative viewpoint here to the commission every day. You know, I'm a conservative and I'm also a Christian. I pray about all my decisions, and I pray that I have the wisdom to make the right decisions. It's not always going to be popular. It's not always going to be something that I want to do, but you know, I don't want to go pay a higher gasoline price at the pump, but if I want to drive, I have to. And so I look at that and I have to balance all of that.
And I know you just mentioned that meter issues are very rare.
Right.
So far, has there been, to your knowledge, any issues with even just one meter or any billing issues that have been found in the complaints that have been filed to the PSC?
I believe, and I would have to check with you to make sure, I believe over like maybe last fall there was one meter that had an issue, but it would have self-corrected, but it did have a problem and they've gotten that fixed. So. But very, very rarely is there a problem with a meter.
And you said that was last fall, so that
Right.
wouldn't be applied to this cold
Not
snap.
that I'm aware of.
So far, everyone's bill seems accurate from what...
We have not found any inaccuracies in any of the billing that I know of. But once again, I would highly recommend if someone's bill is much higher, that is not from a rate increase. That would be from your usage. And something is causing your usage to go up. And so I would highly recommend that you ask for an audit with the power company, and Alabama Power Company will come out and do an audit for free. I think that there's a lot of people requesting audits right now, and there always are a good many people in the wintertime, especially since we use so many heat pumps. But I would highly recommend that you get on their list and have an audit done.
And so with the audit, that's free of charge.
Yes.
Customers just have to call Alabama Power. They'll
Yes.
send someone out, check your home, look for anything that's...
Right. And you know, it's as simple as my front door needed weather stripping. And you cannot imagine how much that has saved just getting that weather stripping put around the door. The weather stripping is less than $5. And it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. And another thing is, I saw someone doing this, that a little pillow that they put in front of the front door. I didn't really think that would work, but it's amazing how much money that saves if you put something like that in front of all your doors. Because when that air, the cold air comes in and your warm air goes out, obviously it makes it more expensive.
Okay, and they're still doing that program, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I could be wrong, but I thought Alabama Power said that they stopped doing that program for safety
Oh, wait,
reasons.
you're talking about the stripping program or the audit?
The audit.
Oh, no, they are still
I might
doing.
have crossed the two,
Yes,
so that's why.
They are
okay.
still doing audits. Now, it may take a little while. You might not have them out tomorrow if you call today, but they will come out. You'll be on the schedule and they will come out and share with you what you might need to do. But you can also go onto their website and they do have a plan for saving money, and you can do that through you know, weather stripping and different things with your heat pump, but there are different ways to save money, and they actually have that on their website for you to see.
Okay.
I will be honest, they are a company that, from what I have seen, and I've had a front row seat, they want to help the consumer. It doesn't do that, they don't make any more money by not caring for the consumer. They're allowed a certain return, and they're only allowed that if we think they're doing a good job. And doing a good job means that you have energy freedom. You can use as much or as little as you want. And it also means that is available. The power is available, and that's energy freedom, available. And that means when there's a storm, they get your power restored as quickly as possible. And when there's a complaint, they answer that complaint as quickly as possible. And they have the lowest price possible for the electricity they're selling. And that's our job. Our job is to make sure that they are using an all of the above approach, that we are using in our state all types of fuel. There is nothing wrong with coal, and coal is a great baseload fuel for electricity production. There's nothing wrong with natural gas. It's fantastic. It just went through the roof because of some policies coming out of Washington, very poor policies. We have hydro. We're blessed with a great river system in our state, and hydro is wonderful. We have a nuclear plant in the footprint of Alabama Power Company, and that's fantastic. And there is nothing wrong with solar if the sun is shining. And so there's also some solar. But we need an all of the above approach so that we can, in Alabama, always have energy freedom. And that is what my goal is. The least expensive electricity, the ability that it's available, and you have the freedom to choose how much you want to use.
Okay. I think those were all my questions. I did want to address one more thing. Just with everything that's been going on, I know that you've been campaigning with the election, not to say that it's related, but just some people feel as an elected official that there might be a lack of transparency to wait this long to get some answers to the questions that they had. So.
Well, let me just share with you. I've been on multiple radio shows. I've been on multiple television shows. I think you all submitted 2 different pages of questions, and we answered those. I was in I drove to Birmingham in your studio last Friday before the election and interviewed for, I believe, 30-minute interview that you all posted. So I am very open and very transparent. In fact, I will share, and you are more than welcome to give it to your listeners. My cell phone, it's my personal phone. It's not a state cell phone. It's 334-558-5432. And if your viewers have any questions that I can answer personally or put them in the right direction, they can call my cell phone. If they want even better help, though, they can call my office, and that's 334-242-5207, and Debbie or Hannah will answer the phone, and they will do a fantastic job. But I always say if you want to serve, you've got to be accessible. But as you said, I was in all 67 counties. I did multiple television and radio interviews, including with your station. I think you and I had one set up, and you made a wise decision not to interview with me that day because I had the flu. So just, so I am very available and very open and very transparent. And that's what I believe I should be as an elected official. And like I said, if you want to serve, you've got to be accessible.
So if anyone still has any questions or wants to talk further, you encourage them to just call your cell phone?
Yes. Absolutely. And I've given it out on every radio station across the state. So if you put it out, it's fine.
Okay. Anything else?
I will say, we have had a few people during this election cycle abuse it. And I would ask that if you are calling, just to have a real question, and I'll be happy to answer. But we have had a few that have used profanity and been ugly, and those are the only calls that I just don't take because I don't think they really have a problem. They're just venting. And but otherwise, I'd love to talk with them. I'd love to help them. And you know what? We're better in Alabama if we work together. It doesn't matter what side you're on. Let's work together.